it is, to my mind, absolutely clear that they will respond against American interests. He's been chiefly responsible for Iran's strategy in Iraq after the 2003 war, for conducting Iran's operations in southern Lebanon by supporting Hezbollah, for instance, and for propping up Bashar al-Assad in Syria. Losing him is the equivalent of losing a kind of a General Washington or General Petraeus in more kind of contemporary terms. Their rationalization is that Iran had been destabilizing Iraqi politics, and the events of last week, especially with the almost seizure of the U.S. embassy in Baghdad, was the last straw. And the United States wanted to send a message that Iran's undue influence in Iraqi politics had to come to an end. I think as the president's tweets after the killing of Soleimani demonstrated, that he has no long-term strategy in mind. He just literally followed the events of the last week. He probably got irked by a tweet that was released by the Office of the Supreme Leader of Iran that said to President Trump that the whole region hates you, quote unquote. And he probably was triggered by that. And he just lashed out by killing Iran's most prized general, just to sort of say, hey, I could do this. It certainly will escalate tensions, and it will put American interests and American military abroad more at risk. Iran, it will certainly look to revenge this killing, to retaliate in a way that it is proportional, and gauging proportionality in this case is very difficult because Iran lost one of its most powerful figures. The regime probably has a very strong base of about 30% of the population that really supports it. They will see this absolutely as an affront. They'll become more radicalized. They will be more likely to enlist in the cause of joining these operations outside of Iran's borders. But I think the general population as a whole in Iran has mixed feelings about this, because they themselves have been questioning why so much of Iran's national resources are being poured into these countries that don't seem to be of strategic interest to the Iranian people, but to the security of the regime itself. And Soleimani was at the forefront of that. The other big elephant in the room is obviously Saudi Arabia, and the U.S. has tremendous oil and material interests in the kingdom, and it would want to ensure that the leadership there is not destabilized. They're really protecting those two key pillars of U.S. policy that increasingly look fragile in the region, the State of Israel and Saudi Arabia. The one key thing that we should never tire of repeating over and over again is that what we're witnessing today is still the consequences of the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The Iraq War is the reason why any of this is really happening in the region. Iran's presence in Iraq, Iran's support for this Iraqi government, Iran's expansion of power in countries like Syria and Lebanon and Yemen, none of this would have been possible if that war had not taken place in 2003, and especially in the absence of a coherent strategic outlook on the part of the United States.